I'm gonna go completely off memory. So this is gonna be the Wild West right here in my head. And as soon as we do this thing, it's gonna it's gonna change everybody's life. So you tuned in on a good night. So we'll when Laura pops on here with the request, then we'll get going. There we go. There's several requests here. Here we go. Oh, there we are.
Hi, Brian.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Great.
I am. What do you got in there? You got a tea?
Got a little bit of coffee in my favorite mug. It says "Crabby till I get my coffee."
I got the Cheshire Cat.
Right on.
It's going to be wild here tonight. This has become quite of a thing. This like a little joke from 8 years ago.
Something like that. Well, I mean, I guess the movie is from 2005, so really, it's from 2005, right?
You're studied up on this film, and you threw a curve with the Vanilla Ice movie. I don't know who that is. I don't know anything.
I got a Mark Hudson, who was our touring front of house engineer and who recorded the past couple of Against Me records. I'll give him credit for letting me know that. The cinematographer who filmed Cool as Ice, Vanilla Ice's movie, is the same cinematographer who shot Schindler's List. Like 2 years after they shot Cool as Ice, they won an Academy Award for Schindler's List. So basically, Cool as Ice is just them practicing for Schindler's List, which is the weirdest connection. But if you go back and if you watch Cool as Ice, it's beautiful. I mean, like, the acting's abysmal and who knows about the plot, but it is a beautifully shot movie.
Okay, I guess we're gonna have to. Well, I'm gonna take your word on that. So, are you trying? What I got out of all that was, did you say that Mark was helping you? So you have a coach.
No, no, no. This is
Oh,
all that Mark had thrown out there years ago. I
okay.
was giving credit due of, like, I learned that through Mark. It wasn't that I was like, that studied. It's a factoid that Mark often shared within
Oh,
our tour party. So
okay. Well, I have to. I feel like I have to die on the sword, no matter what happens here, because Kirsten Dunst is a New Jersey native, and it's really an awful place to be from. So like our state songs about leaving.
which is
So
why I understand why you aren't dying on the sword of the movie Garden State, which is literally named after your state. And obviously, Elizabethtown is such a second-rate garden state. Like, it just is, factually, you know?
okay, I see where you're going with this, but I I feel like Garden State, it it knew what it was doing from the get go. Like it was kind of like, we're gonna make this movie, and we know it's gonna be cool, and we're gonna kind of just do the thing, and like it's gonna be. But I didn't love it.
That's fair. That's totally fair. And I'm not here
Yeah.
to Garden State. I'm just saying that it feels like Elizabethtown never knew what it was doing and like was just like, well, let's do it anyways. But I was almost like, for a second I was like, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna research this. But then I was like, there's no way I'm sitting through that movie again. So I
Yeah.
didn't and watch Elizabethtown again. But my biggest gripes with the film, as I remember it, were okay, there's no chemistry between Orlando Bloom and Kristen Dunst. It's like a vacuum of on-screen chemistry. And then what a waste of Susan Sarandon, who's one of the finest actresses of our generation. And okay, so like between the time that the father dies in the movie, you're expected to believe that Susan Sarandon took like dance lessons and automobile classes, like learned how to fix a car. Like, how long did they wait before they buried the father? And then similarly, Kristen Dunst, like the end of the movie, she makes this like intricate scrapbook for Orlando Bloom, who goes on this road trip coupled with mixtapes She's on the goddamn phone with Orlando Bloom for the whole movie. When did she find time to make that scrapbook and these mixtapes? There was no time.
See, working the midnight shift, you know what I'm saying? Time and a half.
Well, those are my the movies, okay? That's why.
I'll tell you this, that so none of that flew even close to my radar. I watched this film, and I was reading that article that you sent last night, I believe, or yeah, last night. And I was like, wow, didn't see that at all. There was a scene even that like Corey Brennan had brought up about like the cicadas appearing, and I don't remember that scene. So I think that the initial thing is when I watched these, like any movie really, I look for like a moment that kind of strikes me in any way emotional, and then I go, I like that movie if there was enough of that, or I don't like that movie if there's enough of that. And I think that from this assessment, like I don't know if it's a quality film, I can't get down with it, but I think that there were scenes in it that spoke to me just watching it. I think that I can't lay down with this. The whole thing in the beginning is it's not nice to watch. Like it's a little, but it's goofy. I get it. I get that it's goofy. Like the whole exercise bike thing. It's like I don't know where to put that in my life, to be honest with you. But I like some of the scenes, like on the airplane, on that I've been in that position, and I think maybe I'm projecting on this film.
Fair.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I like a lot of bad movies, and I'm sure that even just based on our healthy debate around it, there'll come a time where I will watch that movie. It'll be on in a hotel room or something like that, and I will find great comfort in it, and I will really enjoy it because of all of this.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's a dog shit movie.
Well, says you. I think that's fair. I think I will say that the soundtrack of both films, Garden State and Elizabethtown, sort of unfairly lean on they lean on the movie. I think that it makes both movies like sort of inherently more acceptable or before you even see them. You know what I'm saying?
Sure, and they anchor them to that decade for sure. But also, like, just in the scope of Cameron Crowe's career, like, that's his worst movie. Like,
worst movie.
Yeah, Cameron Crowe, man. Cameron Crowe, like, that's such a terrible movie compared to everything else he's done,
Did Cameron Crowe do Singles or no?
Did he? I don't know.
Because that movie is abysmal.
Singles
yes.
Is great. If you want to throw down Singles against Elizabethtown.
I'm not comparing.
You just did compare.
No, I'm not compared. I think it's terrible on its own merit. I think it's an awful movie.
But is that because you think the 90s are terrible or because you think the movie is terrible?
I think the movie's terrible because I don't think I think okay. So I think that like that whole Seattle thing, it just like affected me when I was young, and like so I read a lot about it and like how those bands, yeah. So when I saw the movie, I was like, this isn't real. There was a lot more competition. There was a lot more leaving people. It wasn't this like sort of like everyone hangs out and is in a band and like, oh, hey, there's Eddie Vedder. He's my drummer. Like that doesn't happen and the scene was sort of blown up. Like the way that it was like, it was done was a lot more, I think it has more like kinship to the 80s hair metal than it did to the grunge bands that were coming up in the late 80s, early 90s. It just doesn't jive with what I read.
The last time I watched it, I was struck by how much it is trying to be the Real World MTV series, which is weird because the Real World was reality TV. And it's like trying to be real, but it's a scripted movie and it just does not work in that format. But I don't know. I'm a sucker for Winona Ryder. And I mean, Ethan Hawke is great in it and great soundtrack as well. All these movies have great soundtracks, and I think the soundtracks really carry the movies.
Well, I think that's okay in a lot of movies. The soundtrack can carry, but that's why we're musicians, not filmmakers. I will say it's okay if a musician goes and, into acting. Very difficult the other way around.
Oh yeah, extremely difficult the other way. There's something really like just distasteful that makes me like really like angry in my soul almost about it. Like I heard a Kevin Bacon single recently and I like wanted to punch a hole through a wall. It just made me so angry. Or who's the dude from Avengers? Like
Oh,
the bow and arrow from Avengers. If
yeah.
you want to ever feel better about your own music, listen to his music. And I feel like it's totally fair game for like everyone universally to like rag on that music because they're millionaires. Like like,
Yeah.
has so much money. But he has a cover. You can listen to it on Spotify of Crash Test Dummies. That is just like, what the fuck train wreck is this? It's incredible.
I don't like that at all. Really?
Oh yeah, 100%. And House of the Rising Sun.
Mm, been there. But I think that there's probably a team of advisors who might want to. I think they get paid enough to have steered him away from.
But they're surrounded by yes people. They're like I'm sure they pitch so hard. They're like, this is what I need right now in between these movie projects. It's like what I need to reset myself and to focus myself so I can be the guy with the bow and arrow in the Avengers. Like that's where they come at it. But I guess what it is that when you convince the world that you're really good at acting, I am unable then to believe that you're honestly singing to me and conveying emotion. I'm just like, you're just acting. Like this is
Yeah.
a role for you. Now you're playing the singer-songwriter, and maybe you're really good at that, but it's still not like I want genuineness in the music that I listen to. I want to believe that the person singing it to me is like bleeding for me, not that they're acting like they are. You
Yeah.
know?
No, I get that. I never thought of that before. That's good. That was probably one of those scenes I missed in that movie. But I never thought about that. But that's because it bothers everybody. I think it universally bothers the public at large whenever you see that. It's like when, I don't know, like however good the actor is, whenever they do it in the other way, it doesn't work. And I'm not really sure why that is. But
Ryan Gosling put out a record in like 2006 or 7 or 8 or something
oh
like that.
yeah.
It was like with the Silver Lake Choir, and that record's pretty good. I listened to it not long ago, and there's the one song "Papa Power" that's like pretty solid.
Yeah, the Dead Man's Bones, right?
Right, that's it. Yeah.
That's good. That record came to me from the movie The Conjuring 2, I believe.
Hmm.
So I was in the theater, and it was like the most tense, like anxiety-inducing scene in the movie. It might be in the first one, I'm not sure. But and all of a sudden, that song I saw someone sleep in your room last night, or there's something in your bed, or one of them. It's something like that. You'll find it if you look it up. But that plays, and it's pretty happy. It's like a kid's song, and there's like kids singing, and it's like sort of got this like Vox Continental sound going, like from the '60s,
Yeah,
and it's horrifying at the scene that they do it in. And I was like, all right, I'll go, I'll get it.
I'll have to check that movie.
He's handsome though, and they get away with more when they're that good looking.
Right?
Sometimes I want to meet him, and sometimes I don't. I don't know. Well, all right. I think that we should play something for the people. What do
Okay,
you think?
I don't know what your format is. How do you do these sitting around at home? Besides,
Okay. So normally speaking, I'll play something, and then we'll talk about it. I'll usually ask the questions about writing and what kind of, like, how do you stay. Oh, well, we could just do one here. I'll show you. Like,
okay.
it's just like, so one thing. So you mentioned Yes Men, right? Now, uh, we both have been writing songs for a very long time, successfully, as far as you can consider. But you get surrounded by people who will inevitably tell you that everything is great that you put out, but that doesn't seem to ever get in my world. And I feel that I don't know. How do you feel about that? Because that doesn't seem to get into your world either with your writing. Like,
Well,
you're still a good critic of your own stuff. That's what I'm saying.
sure, but I think that's what it comes down to. And I was, I was talking about this a little with Corey Brannon, our friend Corey, where I get my bearings from reflection off of other people. And like, I know when I'm working on stuff, I like to share it with people because I know if when I'm sharing it with them, if I feel uncomfortable, I can't bullshit myself that I feel uncomfortable. And I know I feel uncomfortable because it's not finished and because it could be better. So I
Mm.
just figure out like, well, why do I feel uncomfortable about this? Is it something about the delivery? Or is it a lyric, or is it like could the chord change be better? And that's really what it is. But it gets hard sometimes, especially in a band setting, because like you are trying to be diplomatic at times too, of like, okay, well, maybe I'm not always right, and this person could be right about it too. So it definitely gets hard about that.
Yeah, I think that's it's one of the most difficult things to know when you're really you're that thing inside that makes you feel either uncomfortable or not, or like this is the greatest song ever. I want to show everybody. That's a good gauge, but I think it's difficult when neither of those two things happen. You know?
Sure. And then also like it's tough too because I'm good at that, and knowing when I feel uncomfortable about something, and then knowing when I feel certain about something, if I can give myself the space and time to do that. But then also, there's been some songs that I've loathed even when they were recorded onto a record and came out, that then 10 years down the road, I'm like, oh, I kind of like that song. And I don't want to like miss out on those opportunities of surprising myself in that way or growing into a song.
Yeah.
And I really believe that good songs should have the ability to grow and change with you, and that it shouldn't be a stationary thing, because then it's just it's dead. It is what it is, and it can never be anything different. I want something that can change and can take on new life. So it doesn't always have to be right at that moment.
Yeah. How do you get a song that if you're not that excited about it, like do you know, like do you have a feeling like the why? Because I would think you would throw it away if you didn't like it right away.
Some songs, just even when I'm like, I'm throwing this song away, they're like, no, you're not.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
And you're still then like, that like it's from an album ago that you thought you put it to bed, and you're like, God damn it, I just can't let this song go. I got to do something with it,
Yeah.
And then you just like have to see that through, and it is then when you record it and cement it in some way, commit to it in some way, that I'm able to move on from it, and then it can grow on its own and become its own thing. And
Yeah.
sometimes like vice versa, of those songs where you're like, this is my best song I've ever written, oh my God, that then 3 years later you're like, what was I thinking? I'd never want to play this song again.
Yeah, of course. That's what I think everyone does. I like what you're saying about like letting the song kind of breathe and change as it's going. You didn't say breathe, I said breathe. I don't know why I put that on you. Sorry about that. Take that back.
It was implied.
It's a very like something that I've seen like Bob Dylan do, where like all of a sudden the song will come up when he's playing live, and then it's just like, hang on a second, what is this? And then you'll sort of recognize something, the words or whatever. I think that he does it a little bit to an extreme, but to the point where it's a little bit not recognizable. But the idea of the song like being able to change as we all change, I think that for some people that's a necessity. I don't think you can just say, well, I'm going to just do this over and over again the same way as I did when I was whatever old.
But Dylan's not bullshitting you then. Like Dylan is doing that because Dylan doesn't want to be bored with it. Not to speak for Dylan, but that's what I imagine, is that like he's doing it a different way because like, God damn, how long has Bob Dylan been around playing songs? Like, and if he's going to get up there and try to do like be a jukebox and play Blowing in the Wind again for you just because you want to hear him play Blowing in the Wind, how he did it in the 1960s, I don't want a Bob Dylan like that. I was thinking about Bob Dylan today, actually, because I was listening to Bob Dylan. And I was thinking how, like, you can be Bob Dylan and you can write some of the goddamn most beautiful lyrics ever, some of the most brilliant songs ever. And no matter what, Knocking on Heaven's Door will still be your most played song on Spotify. And that's very frustrating, but it's good.
Is that real?
Yeah, that's #1 most played song on Spotify for Bob Dylan is "Knocking on Heaven's Door." So, and I'm sure he hates that because I'm sure like that's his least favorite of his songs, you know. But it's good perspective to have of just like, what does it matter, you know?
Wow, that does help. Is that because? Do you think that's because of the Guns N' Roses cover?
I think "Knocking on Heaven's Door" is a good song, but yeah, maybe that helps.
Yeah.
You know what my favorite version is and Mel Gibson is a turd, don't get me wrong, but at the end of Lethal Weapon 2, when Danny Glover's holding Mel Gibson and he's been shot, and this, I don't even know who does the version of "Knocking on Heaven's Door," but it comes in, you know, after the like diplomatic.
Oh yes.
Yeah, and there's this version of "Knocking on Heaven's Door" that comes in that's just so chilling and so good. Perfect film moment. Jumping back to films.
There's a little there's actually a Sting song from Lethal Weapon 2 that they used with the advertisement that I don't mind. It's like a Sting solo song from the 90s. It's called "It's Probably Me," and I like it. And a matter of fact, I rewatched the movie like a week ago and I was like, song still slaps. It's good.
Sting's tough, you know, because the Police are brilliant, undoubtedly. Some of Sting's solo stuff, you're just like, where are you going with this? Like,
He's going to the fields of gold. Fields of gold.
Where that is.
That's a song on the radio that was on the radio when both of us were young, and it was very popular. Millions and millions sold. All right, so what normally happens in between the chattering back and forth is I'll play and then or you can play. I don't care who plays first. This is going format free tonight because
Okay.
I think that it's amazing. Do you? I would love. Do you have any like a song like that you were saying? Like, is there a song where things change like that for you?
I actually came prepared with a song that I want to play
I
that
love this.
that isn't one of my songs. It's just a song that I'm obsessed with right now, and I love it.
Let's do this.
And I think it's more fun to be a little selfless and share someone else's song. So this is a song that a friend of mine named Jonathan Cootie wrote, and it's called "Heaven from Here."
Okay.
And I apologize if I mess it up.
I'm just turning it down.
Nobody knows what a carrot really tastes like. I bet it tastes alright. You can have my bite. I followed around until I reached a conclusion. A manufactured illusion. Slavery as inclusion. I wanna see you living a good life. I wanna know you're feeling it too. The mold wall cracks, letting some sunshine. And now we can break it on through. 'Cause there's nothing but heaven from here. I bet you bleed and you hurt the same that I do. I see what you go through. I see myself in you. And I see fertile fields and bounty wasted. And if you could trace it, I bet you could taste it. I wanna see you living a good life. I wanna know you're feeling it too. The mold wall cracks, letting some sunshine. And now we can break it on through. 'Cause there's nothing but heaven from here. Yeah, there's nothing but heaven from here.
Wait, who is this by?
Jonathan, he played in a band called Ninja Gun. He's
Oh,
from
yeah.
South Florida, or he's from Florida, from Georgia. Yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah.
know who you're talking about.
He's a brilliant, brilliant songwriter. And this song in particular, I was going through like a really low moment back in 2013, and I was in a studio with him, and he sat down and he just played it for me, and it like brought me to tears. And the first line of the song, "Nobody knows what a carrot really tastes like. I bet it tastes all right. You can have my bite," I think is just hands down the most brilliant lyric I've ever heard.
It's great. I mean, it grabbed as soon as he sang it. I was like, "What?
Yeah,
What was
because
that?"
wait, do I know what a carrot really tastes like?
But it's immediately arresting, though, because it's not the kind of thing that you would typically hear in a song. That's a good song. I really like that song. So I will go now. What's it called? What's the song called?
Heaven from Here.
Heaven from Here. The cool thing about it is you expect it to sort of remain in that minor, and right at the end, it switches to the little major note, and that's very good. Like that's great songwriting. So, well, then that's amazing. I love that, and I'm glad that you did that. So, enough about other people, though. Let's talk about you. So, the thing that now I'm curious. I've been curious for a long time. You Are you like, where do you get, I know where I get like,
Get off. No,
what?
sorry.
Where
Go
do you
ahead.
get off? Like, where do you get the, like, you're great at writing like the anthemic chorus. Maybe, could be the innovator of that kind of thing. Because for the longest time, before your songwriting came around, that wasn't really the thing. And you, because that was for pop music, for a long time, like a lot of the bands didn't have that going on. And you kind of took the punk thing, I call it punk, I don't know what it's called, but back into being like not stupid. Like it was thoughtful and not pandering to anything, didn't try to sound like that kind of thing. But like, like pop music does, but in the way that it was done. I'm trying to get this all out in one sentence. I apologize, but it's like, what, like, how did you bring that into your mind to say, like, this is where this is where I'm coming from, and I want to take this and turn it into my own thing? Like, what was that?
I guess, like when it comes down to it, like I grew up listening to pop music. The band, like, the first cassette tape I ever got was Def Leppard Hysteria, and I loved Pour Some Sugar on Me. And
Yeah.
Sugar on Me is just the chorus, like
Right.
I don't remember what the verse lyrics are. I've listened to that song a million times. I just know what the chorus lyrics are. And a lot of punk is like manifestos. You're like given this manifesto with each song, which is so much pressure because like you're trying to give these like really elaborate political statements that like that's tough, and I realized like at a certain point that it was really more about the chorus. And as long as you could capture the sentiment of what you were trying to get across with the chorus, that the verses would kind of carry themselves and you didn't have to pay as much attention to the verses really, And then also I realized like, oh, people like, it's so much more fun if people are singing along and they're dancing, like, and people need a chorus in order to sing along and dance because that's what they sing along to more so than the verse. Everyone kind of drifts off during the verse, but if you got a good chorus, they're in,
Yeah.
And that's like, I don't know, but that to me makes sense within punk and politics and sloganeering and stuff like that. But it's hard to do, and I feel like that, with that, I can't be as conscious driven about it. It's like an idea has to strike me for the chorus of like, oh, that would be a good idea for the chorus, and then I got to write the rest of the song around it. It's really hard to like start out writing some verses and then be like, and now I'm going to write a brilliant chorus. Like
Right.
that's really tough to do.
I think that that's kind of the way that I've seen a lot of people do it is come up with the main idea and then sort of get the rest fleshed out. Because if you don't have that, like that main chorus thing, it can be tough. I, on the other hand, just pray for rain at all times. So I smash my head into the table day in and day out, just trying to find, like, I've gotten books on this. The Stephen King book on writing?
No, what is it?
Okay, so, well, it's great. So Stephen King wrote a book called On Writing, and essentially the whole first part is about him growing up and how he grew up. But then the next half is all about, basically it's like him giving a course on writing. So it's directed at the reader, and it's like, here's how I do it. And the things that he said in that book, I think really, it didn't necessarily like find anything revolutionary new that I didn't already know, but it validated the struggles I was having and made me feel like I wasn't a total fraud because I couldn't do it so easily.
Huh. I'll check that out, and I'll recommend one too. Similar, I love Haruki Murakami, and they wrote a book called What I Talk About When I Talk About Running. I love running. I'm an avid runner. And it basically just, like most of their books are science fiction, fantasy based. And this book is strictly just about like their approach to their work ethic and how they wake up and they run 6 miles every day. And then they sit down and they write for X amount of time. And then, they clock out. But I get so fascinated with like artists' work schedules and their approach to working and everything like that. Okay, I've got a bone to pick with you.
Oh, good.
It's in a totally good way.
Another one.
and since it relates to choruses and specifically one of your songs. And I want to know, I'm curious about this. So the other day, I sent out a tweet that was like kind of griping about being a person with an acoustic guitar on a live stream and stuff like that. And you called me on it, you DM'd me and you're like, hey, if you don't want to do my thing, that's totally cool, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, it wasn't about you, Brian, but also it kind of was, even though it wasn't specifically about you in that, like, it wasn't that I was dreading talking to you. It's just like, I have this total aversion right now to schedules where like the second I have any kind of time commitment, I feel like the walls are closing in on me and I'm totally anxiety ridden. And it's just based on the circumstances we're in, so that feels real. But at the same time, like, I really respect that about you, where like, if you're like, well, that seems similar, like, I'm going to call you on this. So here's what I want to know. Did you write the song Nobody Wins About Me?
Nobody Wins?
Yeah.
No.
Are you sure?
I'm 100% sure because I wrote it with Butch Walker.
Okay. All right.
Wait, what are you talking about? What part do you think is about you?
Well, because you reference new wave in the lyrics, all right?
Yeah.
And then the chorus is, hey, 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 little Tommy gun, right?
Yeah.
And I've listened to that chorus and I'm like, all right. And like, I that used to be my name, right? Tommy. And when I hear it, every time I'm like, it would be so much better if you didn't use gun and it was, hey, hey, little Tommy girl. That's what I hear when I know it's self-centered and totally up my own ass. But you reference new wave in the lyrics, and also because of our history that we've had together, with like managers and stuff like that, the sentiment of nobody wins, and I always thought we were the lucky ones. It resonated with me. So,
that could be. I will say this: I have never thought about that. I'll explain. So the end of the song, it goes new wave, like the music, comma, old stones, like Rolling Stones. Like the music that you like is new wave and old stones. But the chorus, there's a friend of mine who you can look up on Instagram. Okay. And his name is Tom Duhamel. And when we were kids, like he was he was the first one to sort of bring around like anything that had to do with punk and reggae. So he was not content with the idea that we were just going to listen to ska. He was like, I'm going to find out who this is from. Like, he took me to the wetlands to see this guy, Laurel Aitken, when we were probably like 17 years old. And he was obsessed at 17 years old with The Clash, who, as you know, has a song called Tommy Gun. Right. And so that's where the name came from. So that's what the whole thing is about. But no, not about.
You should lie and you should say the song's about me and you should change the lyrics because it's much better my way.
I will now from now on. From now on, it's about you. If I've never actually like, I've only ever written about someone I know in once, and it was like one time where like someone I know, like a friend, like not someone I was like in my immediate sphere, but I never ended up writing about like immediate things that were like, I don't know, like I almost thought that you couldn't write about like interactions that you had, say like if like say so we had same manager for a while, like so my experience even like with the music industry and stuff and all these things, I could never find a way to write about it that didn't feel like totally lame, which you have found a way to make it absolutely not lame when you wrote about it. But that's not, I don't know, it's like something that I have wanted to be like able to say, you don't need this massive event in your life to write a song. You just can do like, you can write about whatever has happened and make it into something cool. But I don't feel that I've done that. I'm also really happy on the second thought that you even know that song exists.
I'll be honest with you, Brian. I listen to your solo records really often. I listen to your solo records way more than I've ever listened to Gaslight Anthem records.
That's a true fact?
It's 100% true fact.
That means a lot to me. I don't know that you like my music. I never asked you. I was too chicken to ever be like, hey, what do you think of this?
I do. I really like your new record, and I love your solo records. I think that your album covers for Painkillers and Sleepwalkers in particular are like two of the coolest fucking looking album covers in who knows how long. They just like ooze like, oh, that's cool. Like
really? Okay.
The vibe of it,
I like this. I never ever thought that you would think that or to ask. I'm always too scared to ask anybody what they think about, like, people, I can ask people that, what?
I said, like, hey, what do you think about me? Yeah, you shouldn't ask people what they do.
Could you just tell me something about me? I feel like that's like such a weird thing. I'll tell you, it's like, I'm not that confident, to be honest with you. I get real shook up by sometimes if somebody makes like the wrong comment to me, like I just go into the void and like I'll hold it inside for like, it just like works on my brain, on my psyche. It's just like but it's like so random where it sort of depends on, like, this happens with me. This is why I struggle so hard with songs, because like I'll be sitting there and like somebody will have said something 2 years ago and I'll be like, you're a total fraud, and it'll just like get in there but then get louder, and like I should go to therapy.
That's what we're talking about with the whole like ruminating on something that eats at you with the song. You got to get back to it. But what were you gonna say?
Well, yeah, that it, like I went to therapy about this, to be honest, like for other things too, but just because I was always unhappy with I felt like there was outside voices and I didn't have like a fence or whatever. Like my skin was just like translucent. It would just go through me. And even if I recognized it as something I should reject, I couldn't. And it would just sort of like ping pong around there. And that got into a lot of the hardness with writing songs where it used to be so much easier.
Yeah. I was actually thinking about this kind of specifically this morning, where I think that as an artist, as a songwriter, as a writer in general, like, you shouldn't be self-confident. You should be confident that you enjoy the act of writing. You should be like, I love sitting down with my guitar and playing the guitar. But then anything external from that, it becomes the ego. And like, who wants to listen to sing a song like, yeah, I'm the best songwriter there is. These are the best songs you're ever going to hear. I don't want to listen to somebody like that. I kind of appreciate someone who's like a little humble about it and filled with a little doubt, other than knowing I have to do this. I'm compelled to do this. And but beyond that, I'm not interested.
I think there's a book called The War on Art, and did they say something like, if you have like basically the book is like yourself is warring against your desire to create. Like, so you're those interruptions where you're like, I think I'm going to make coffee before I sit down. Like that's like an attack on your whatever. But at one point, I think they say if your goal is like to make any money, or the goal is not, they're talking about finishing a book, but it applies to everything. But
Right.
like if your goal is anything other than enjoying writing that book, then you've already failed. And I was
Oh,
like, yeah,
yeah. But
it's
then
gnarly.
I'll get into like strange like things with my head sometimes where I'm like, and I have a book, right? But like I'm still like I have this like fraud feeling sometimes where I'm like I'm not a writer, and it's like I wake up every morning and I write, and I'm not a writer, but all I do is write, you know.
I assure you that you're a writer, like official writer, done, done, done,
Oh,
and
it's
a successful writer as well. So it's, well, here's one thing that I'll show you. So you played another song. I'm going to play a song by someone else now. I just quietly reached over onto my desk with my little scissor fingers and grabbed it and slid it on there without anybody seeing it. So this is a song by someone named Noah Gunderson, who I think is a brilliant songwriter. And I'm gonna do a song called Middle of June, and then we'll get right back to this talking because this is interesting.
cool.
I have now got a lot of books to buy. Here we go. Time is a cold wind blowing through the leaves of a tired old tree I sit beneath, where I think about the world and I don't know how, what'll happen to us now. And peace is a ladder up to the clouds that I'm wishing I could climb, but I don't know how. So would you lend me a hand to the promised land where I'm headed, glory bound? And it comes and it goes, where it's headed no one knows. And we come and we go, all the saints and the liars sitting by the fire, what'll happen to us now? Hatred is a sharp knife held by the blade, and it's cutting in your palm till you feel no pain, burning in your eyes with a righteous rage till the ashes blow away. And love is a thing that you can't define, though you try with all your might through the riddles and rhymes. It'll fly you like a kite, it'll throw you to the ground. It's the best thing I have found. And it comes and it goes, where it's headed no one knows. And we come and we go, like a winter and a spring, losing everything just to gain it back again. But oh, how pretty is the middle of June. Oh, how pretty is the middle of June. And oh, how pretty is the middle of June. There you go. Noah Gunderson.
I love your voice, Brian.
Thank you very much. I love your voice, Laura. It's great. I think that it's nice to be able to sit down, not for, just for a second. Obviously it's not ideal, but to sit down and talk. Like the one thing that I've been like, yeah, there's not enough talking about, I think, the process that goes into it between people. Like, one thing that people say about me is they're like, well, you're so nostalgic. Like, well, I'm not really nostalgic, but what I'm more interested in today than I am in back then. But what I find lacking is that, like, there's so many lines drawn between people where I don't see these community pockets anymore like I used to. And I don't see people like freely sharing the things they've learned, the things that they have, the warnings, anything, or communing on a level that's just like, like, you're a famous person, but you're sitting down talking to however many people that, and you're telling them things that are important. I think, how many writers are out there? How many non-writers, just other people that are finding things to be inspired during talking? I think that that's a lost art in a way. And that's why I think this is great.
Well, that's, you said it, is that there is an art to it, because like there's a difference between preaching to people and trying to like, this is how you do it, or whatever, and just like genuinely sharing. And when you're genuinely sharing, people can glean what they should glean off of it and use it as their own and adopt it and take it or leave it, And
Yeah.
that's the trick with stuff.
I think that's what do they call that? They what do they call it? Mansplaining these days? Is that the new thing that they call it when you're like telling someone something that you're not? Like, what does that mean? Because I see it a lot. Is it like
you know where a mansplainer gets their water from?
No.
From a well, actually.
Wait, can you? I have never been able. What does that mean? Like, what is it actually? Like, give me an example
Of mansplaining?
Yeah,
when a man like explains to you something that you already can understand.
Oh, okay, I got you. So like, well, that happens to me all the time when whenever I walk into like a hardware store or something like that. That's where it ideally happens to me.
I think it's a little different there, but yeah, like
I'm not sure where. Like, I was just asking, like, what I thought it meant people who are like know-it-alls.
Yeah, even if they don't actually know it, it's
Oh.
the problem.
Sure. That's not fun.
Common in studio situations for sure,
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
So I think that I was very happy that you decided to come on, that you're here. I know that you said scheduling is tricky, which I get, but
It's crazy times.
Yeah, there's not anything nobody knows what's going on. This is weird. But I'm excited that you came on to talk to me about songs. I feel like I've learned a lot. Now I've learned about choruses and the points, and I'm like, okay, well, now here we go. There's like a file going I should have. I don't know, maybe I'll write a book about songwriting from everybody else, but then I'll have to pay royalties. It'll be terrible. Because there's so many guests. Who would I even pay? Think all the managers.
If we're wrapping up, I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
So 21 days.
Yeah.
Have you ever broken a habit over 21 days?
Okay, so no, that song got an article written about it in Rolling Stone, and they said it was about quitting smoking. It actually wasn't. But Rolling Stone's a giant magazine, so that's what everybody thinks now. But what happened is I was in therapy talking about trying to like disassociate from like a negative, like a real thing that had like a grip on me that I felt like I couldn't get away from. Like I was like kind of like those thoughts I was telling you. And so my therapist had said, you should try this. And I said, I don't think that's going to work. And they said, listen, try this for 21 days. And I said, why that? And they said, because it's long enough that if you achieve that goal of making it that far, you will feel a tangible distance from like trying to get over this feeling. And that will give you encouragement to continue on. And then I also found it in any other like counseling that I looked, and they would say that a lot. So it kind of became like a mantra that I even didn't believe necessarily, but a metaphor for distance.
I like it. I quit smoking 20 days ago.
20 days.
20 days ago. So tomorrow is my 21 days from having quit smoking. Not cigarettes, weed. I quit smoking cigarettes like 3 years ago now, two or 3 years ago, 3 years
Yeah.
ago. Yeah.
How do you
So
feel?
I feel really good.
Yeah.
Like I feel very focused. I feel like it's probably good that I'm alone right now because when I get very focused and I don't have a buffer between me and reality, I know that I can be a little intense for people. So I don't know. But fuck them.
That's all right. Yeah, exactly. That's the moral of the story. Well, this is great. Then thank you, Laura, for coming on the show and for talking to me. And thank you for all the help. And thank you for taking my band on that first tour because that meant the world to us.